We have some devastating Charlotte Flair news, a Dexter Lumis update, and some scary Kenny Omega updates as well. That and much, much more on the rundown presented by WrestleSTAR. Dexter Lumis. Where has this man been? I've been wondering, have you? Because we've fallen in this trap where there are certain guys not used on television. There are certain girls that are not used on television. And actually, Dexter Lumis falls in this category because he was brought back to the company after being released. He was reunited with Indy Hartwell. He kind of, the way, reconnected, right? Johnny Gargano, Candice LeRae. And then we've kind of shifted where it's been Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa reuniting as DIY on Monday Night Raw. And there's been a lot of fans wondering, where is this guy? Well, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select reports that, in fact, Dexter Lumis is not injured, but he hasn't been at many TV tapings, and he's just still waiting for a creative direction. Look, I think there's a place on the card for Dexter Lumis. I don't know necessarily where that is. I think it falls more in line with the comedy role, something that R-Truth has filled for years. He's a worthy guy of being on the roster. Obviously, he's not going to be a main eventer. Obviously, he's not going to be an upper carder. He doesn't really need to have a championship. And he's kind of, and I think this is where he's at. I think this report backs this up where it's like, okay, if he's not paired with Johnny Gargano, and if he's not paired, back in the day in NXT with Austin Theory, who's now on SmackDown and a Hill and really in a different universe, well, where does Dexter Lumis fit on the card? I don't know. Comedy role, maybe you just do a bunch of skits and backstage segments with him instead of relying on his in-ring ability. I think that would be a nice way to do it. You could do some spots with him and Indy as a married couple. I think you just got to think outside the box with Dexter Lumis at this point in his career, but either way, I think he'll be okay. Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair. This news just continues to get worse for Charlotte Flair because one of the most important names on the WWE roster right now is sidelined, and she's going to be sidelined for 9 months. And more news continues to come out regarding her and her, I don't know, DDT slam thing in the corner. It was very odd. And Dave Meltzer reported in the Daily as being out for 9 months, something that WWE recently confirmed on SmackDown. PW Insider actually reported that Flair is believed to have suffered a strained neck. NXT going from the USA Network to the CW Network. You have Friday Night SmackDown going from Fox to USA once again. And Charlotte Flair, as much criticism as she gets, she's one of their top stars. She's one of the biggest stars in the entire company, not just the women's division. And with Roman Reigns being on a part-time schedule, and I understand that, yes, they've bumped up the star power of Friday Night SmackDown with the returns of Randy Orton and AJ Styles, and that definitely helps. And you obviously have LA Knight, but for months there, where Roman wasn't working your paybacks, your fast lanes, your Survivor Series, WWE built around the women's division, right? You had Damage Control. They're a feature part of television right now with Bayley and Asuka and Io Sky and Kairi Sane and all of them and Dakota Kai. And you also had Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair and Charlotte Flair. And now you're not having Charlotte Flair in the mix, and that's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. You can't get around that. But obviously, best wishes to Charlotte Flair at this time. Odyssey Jones, remember him? Interesting guy, right? He had some success in NXT, wasn't pushed, as a main eventer or an upper carder. I don't even think he had a title run. If he did, someone will correct me in the comments, but I don't think he did. And then he was moved up to the main roster in early 2023 as part of the draft, and he never made his TV debut. And he'll work occasional live events every once in a while, but it was no big deal. Fightful has a report noting that at one point, Odyssey Jones was pitched to be part of the Bobby Lashley Street Profits stable. However, that didn't go anywhere. And it's interesting because you had Bobby Lashley, who has been really underutilized this year. only up until recently they've done anything with him. Obviously, he won the Andre Memorial Battle Royale. His WrestleMania plans with Bray Wyatt were unfortunately nixed. He's been paired with the Street Profits, who have been put on the back burner for so long. I have no idea why. They're so talented. They can do anything you ask them to do. Just give them the ball and they'll run with it. So you turn them heel essentially with a heel Bobby Lashley. You put them on Friday Night SmackDown. You don't use them for a while. Then you start using them for a while. And when they're back on television, even though they're portraying to be heels, they're getting babyface reactions, whether that be at live events, whether that be at TV events. People want to see these guys have a babyface run. Look, Lashley can play either role. I actually like him better as a heel. But when it comes to the Street Profits, I understand, changing up their gimmick just a little bit, but they're beloved baby faces. So it's very hard for fans to boo them and them get heat, right? People like them. They're good people. So let's cheer them. And finally, Kenny Omega. Yeah. Kenny Omega. Oh man, oh man. So obviously Omega announced last week that he was on the sidelines indefinitely in a caption of a photo in which he posted of himself in the hospital. Then it was reported by Fightful Select, Sean Ross Sapp, that Omega was diagnosed with diabetic. I just botched the heck out of that. And look, he's dealing with diverticulitis. There we go. I'll get roasted in the comments for that. Whatever. I botched. I had a botch, y'all. It happens. And obviously, this is going to impact AEW's plans for its World End 2023 pay-per-view that takes place on Saturday, December 30th, 2023 from the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Long Island, New York, as the World Tag Team Champions Big Bill, Ricky Starks were slated to defend the titles against the Golden Jets, Chris Jericho, and Omega. And now there's going to have to be some changes to that, whether that be Omega is replaced by someone else as a new tag team partner, Chris Jericho, and or Chris Jericho is removed from the match. The match is completely nixed, or there's another tag team that challenges for the gold, right? Now, on speaking on the Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer noted that what Omega was dealing with leading up to it. And while we don't know for sure if he had surgery yet, as of the recording of this video, he has been in a lot of pain. Actually, Omega thought that he was dealing with another hernia, something that he dealt with in 2022. And then he also thought, well, maybe I messed up on my diet because he had a lot of bloating. So his stomach is hurting and he's bloating at the same time. But he kept training, he kept working, he kept pushing through the pain. He did a match with Ethan Page on a recent episode of Collision. And then he really did that very off promo segment where it was Ricky Starks and Big Bill on the stage going back and forth, exchanging words with Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega, who were in the ring. It was a bad segment, but look, Omega and Jericho have hit home runs after home runs after home runs. Every good once in a while, you're going to screw up. And that's what happened with these guys. It's no big deal. And I touched on this in a previous video, but it's like Kenny Omega being sidelined for AEW right now, that's a major blow for them. And when they're trying to lock down a TV deal in 2024, where there's so much negativity around AEW right now, with everyone wanting to predict their demise, you really need someone like Kenny Omega around, being able to give the star power that you're seeking, give a boost to the show, put on a great match, put on a great segment, right? That's what Kenny Omega does. He does great. That's his role. He is great. And with him, when he was out for much of 2022 because of his various injuries, that show felt it. AEW felt the lack of there not being Kenny Omega. And you're going to feel it again. I don't think people understand the severity of not having Kenny Omega on AEW programming. And I think they're going to find out the hard way. And it's a shame, but that's just the reality of the situation. I hope that AEW can power through this. Obviously, they're going to have to. But it's going to leave an impact. It really will.